My name is Claire Hendricks. I'm 34 years old and I found out my marriage was over from a hospital bed, watching the noon news with the sound off. On screen, boarding a luxury cruise liner at Port Miami were my parents, my sister, and my husband, laughing in a linen shirt I had ironed myself. I was 31 weeks pregnant, hooked to a blood pressure monitor and feeling something cold slide straight through me. I checked my phone. There it was. A charge on my credit card, 6 days old. Cruise trip 3,750. I called my husband. "Where are you?" I asked. "At work," he said calmly. I smiled at the ceiling and I whispered, "Enjoy yourself." And right there, with my daughter drumming her heels under my ribs, I made up my mind to end it all. Not my life was just getting started, hiccuping away on the fetal monitor. The lie my life was built on, though, that was finished. What I did from that hospital bed over the next 6 weeks, with a laptop, a nurse named Yolanda, and 15 years of my family's numbers memorized in my head, is why my father now tells people his own daughter stabbed this family in the back. He's right about exactly one thing. It was surgical. Let me back up 5 weeks. I'm a CPA, senior accounting manager at a logistics company in Miami, the person who signs off when the numbers are finally, actually true. I've been married to Marcus Cole for 5 years. He's 36, handsome in the specific way that closes deals, and he works as sales director for my father's company, Ashford Marine Group, a boat dealership and charter fleet, 12 slips of gleaming white fiberglass off the causeway. That's the shape of it. I married a man who worked for my father, which meant, though I didn't do the math on it until much later, that I was the only person at our dinner table whose paycheck didn't run through my dad. We had a good house on Coral Way, a nursery half-painted the yellow of lemon sherbet, and a daughter due in 9 weeks. And I had a second job nobody ever once called a job. Every January for 15 years, since I was 19 years old, I tidied the books for Ashford Marine Group. Unpaid. Of course, unpaid, you don't invoice family. My father would hand me a box of statements and a bookkeeper's summary, pour me the good coffee, and tell me I was the only one he trusted with the real numbers. I want you to hold on to that phrase, the real numbers, because it's going to matter enormously later. In my family, January was how I proved my love, in spreadsheets reconciled to the penny, signed where the preparer signs. I was proud of it, the way you're proud of any language you're fluent in, right up until the day you find out what was actually being said in it the whole time. My blood pressure, by the way, was perfect back then. The obstetrician has a chart. You could set your watch to it. To understand my father, you only need one sentence, and he'll happily give it to you for free. Walter Ashford, 62, silver hair, a handshake like a boat winch, is a self-made man who sells beautiful boats to people who mostly can't afford them. His personal gospel, delivered at showrooms, at christenings, at my own wedding, is this: looking poor costs more than being poor. He believes it the way other men believe in God. The Ashfords were always doing great. The cars said so. The watch said so. The 4th of July party with the raw bar said so loudest of all. My sister Brooke, 30, was the company's marketing director, a job with no hours I ever once actually witnessed her work. My mother, Diane, ran the family's image the way some women run a household. Invitations out, appearances up, questions down. And me, I was the secret weapon. That's the exact phrase my father used, his hand warm on my shoulder, positioned in front of precisely the guests he wanted to overhear it. Our secret weapon. For 15 years, there was a chair attached to that compliment, the CFO seat, coming to me when we expand. Promised at 19, repromised at 24, toasted at 29 in front of a table of dealers. The expansion always came. New slips, new trucks, a bigger party. The chair never did. Titles are for strangers, my father liked to say. Family doesn't need org charts. I saw it happening. I want to be very clear that I saw it happening. I'm a woman who finds discrepancies for a living, and this particular one was mine to find. I just kept booking my love wherever he told me to book it, every January, and carried the difference forward like goodwill on a balance sheet. That's the thing nobody tells you about being fluent in a language. You can read every single word of it and still completely miss what it was actually for. The hospital part started on a Tuesday in my 31st week. Routine appointment, and then the cuff went around my arm, and the nurse's face did the thing nurses' faces do when they've decided on purpose not to alarm you. 158/94. Preeclampsia risk. Not an emergency, they said, a watch. and watching blood pressure like mine apparently meant admission. The antepartum unit, a bed by the window. Monitors that turned my daughter's heartbeat into a soundtrack running 24 hours a day. A whiteboard by the door where each shift wrote my numbers in blue marker. I could work a little from the laptop, walk the hallway twice a day, and otherwise my entire job was to stay calm and grow a person. Marcus brought my pillow from home the first night and stayed 40 minutes. The visits thinned out fast after that. "This quarter is insane, babe. Big numbers coming." My mother texted red hearts. My father sent a photo of a sunset from the marina with no words attached at all, which for him counts as genuine intimacy. And that same week, the family group calendar had an event I'd already heard about for a month, the dealer conference in Tampa. All of them going. Dad, Mom, Brooke, Marcus. 4 days, maybe 5. Big accounts, huge for the company. "Rest," my mother told me on the phone. "Grow my granddaughter, we'll all be boring in Tampa." I remember feeling grateful. I want that on the record, because it's the one detail I'd change if I could go back. My family left town to lie to me, and I lay in that hospital bed feeling grateful they finally had somewhere important to be. Yolanda, my nurse, wrote my numbers on the whiteboard that afternoon and told me the baby had a strong heart. Somebody in that room needed one. It was a Thursday. Lunch tray untouched. TV murmuring quietly to itself in the corner. The noon news ran a fluff piece. A brand new luxury liner making her maiden voyage out of Port Miami. Champagne, streamers. A reporter standing on the dock in a windbreaker. I was half watching it the way you watch anything at all in a hospital, which is to say, the way you watch weather. And then the camera panned across the boarding deck, and the weather became my family. 4 seconds of B-roll. My father raising a glass to someone off camera, wearing the blazer my mother calls his closing jacket. My mother beside him, laughing with her chin tipped back. Brooke waving both arms at the camera the exact way she's done since she was 6 years old. And Marcus, my husband, in the pale blue linen shirt I had personally ironed and hung on the closet door the morning before I was admitted, laughing with his head thrown back at something my father had just said. The reporter said the word unforgettable. The segment ended. A commercial for flooring came on. I sat very still, the way your body does when it already knows something before your mind has finished filing the paperwork. And then, feeling uneasy in a way I couldn't yet name, I checked my phone. The card alert had come in 6 days earlier. I'd been mid-monitoring appointment and swiped it away without reading it. Cruise trip, $3,750. My card, not our joint card. Mine, I called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring, easy as a Sunday morning. "Hey, babe." "Where are you?" I asked, a half-beat. The smallest half-beat in the entire world, the kind only auditors and wives are trained to actually hear. "At work," he said calmly, and I smiled. I genuinely smiled at the ceiling tiles, and I whispered, "Enjoy yourself," and hung up before he could add a single decorative detail. Yolanda came in 2 minutes later to check my pressure. 162 over something I don't remember. She looked at me. I looked at the ceiling. "I'm going to need my laptop," I said. Here's what I did not do. I did not call my mother. I did not call the ship. I did not post anything, cry to anyone, or throw my phone at the flooring commercial. I asked for my laptop, and my neighbor, a woman named Carmen who kept our spare key and asked exactly 0 questions, dropped it off at the nurse's station the next morning. Marcus texted me a heart and "Glad you've got your projects, babe," slammed with meetings. The ship, I would learn, was docked in Cozumel that day. The meetings were a swim-up bar. I opened the laptop and did the thing I've done every January for 15 years. I started with what I could actually verify. Our joint accounts first. One evening with statements I had every legal right to read because my name is on that account. And there it was, patient as sediment. $28,400 moved out over 18 months, in 11 transfers. Each one memoed, AMG Bridge. Bridge. Money walking quietly out of my marriage and into my father's company, authorized by my husband, 1 plank at a time. The cruise charge sat separately, on my personal card. The card Marcus had been an authorized user on since our honeymoon, because that's what trust looks like when you're 29 and in love. $3,750. A shore excursion package, booked 6 days before departure, charged to the wife in the hospital bed. I did not delete him from the card that night, though my thumb hovered over the button for a long time. Auditors don't spook the account before the count is finished. Instead, I opened a fresh spreadsheet and named it the way I name all my files plainly. Household actuals. Column A, what I'd been told. Column B, what the record actually said. It's the oldest report in my entire profession. It has ended more marriages than any private detective ever has. The second night, I went somewhere I probably should have gone years earlier. The company's shared drive, legally, boringly, with the login they'd given me 15 years ago and quietly renewed every single January. I was, after all, the family's numbers person. I wasn't hunting. I was preparing, the way you prepare before you confront your husband. Know what's true. Know what's provable. Know the difference between the two. And there, sitting in the shared folder tree like it had every right in the world to be there, was something new. A folder called Charters, WA only. My father is not a details man. That was always my department. He had synced his own private bookkeeping into the company drive by mistake. I stared at that folder name for a long time. WA only. Then I clicked, because my name had been signing this company's paperwork for 15 years, and whatever lived inside that folder lived under my signature too, whether I'd ever seen it or not. Inside was the Charter Fleet's real ledger. I knew the fake one intimately. I'd polished it every January. Cash receipts, modest and tidy, a struggling side business kept afloat purely for love of the sea. The real one ran a second column the January version never once saw. Cash charters. Bachelor parties, fishing weekends, sunset weddings, hundreds of them, years of them. None of it anywhere in anything I'd ever been handed. I sat in my hospital bed with my daughter's heartbeat galloping through the monitor's little speaker, scrolling through 5 years of 2 separate truths, and I finally understood my Januaries. I hadn't been tidying my family's books. I'd been painting them. Every single year they handed me a staged room, and I made it look lived in, and I signed my own name at the bottom like an artist signing a forgery. If you don't work in my field, here's the part where I explain why my hands actually went cold, and it wasn't the betrayal. On 5 years of Ashford Marine Group's tax returns, in the box that says Preparer, is my signature. Claire Hendricks, CPA. I had prepared those filings in good faith, from numbers my father's bookkeeper fed me. And good faith is a completely real legal defense, right up until the exact moment you learn the truth and keep quiet anyway. After that moment, every silent week converts a victim into an accomplice, slowly, the way interest compounds. I know this because I called Mira Advani, a tax attorney I'd known since a continuing education seminar a decade earlier. The kind of woman who answers the phone like she's already read your entire file before you've said a word. I talked for 11 minutes. She was quiet for maybe 30 seconds. Then she said, "Claire, I need you to hear the order of events. Your marriage is a problem for later. Your name is a problem for right now. You're standing on a set of railroad tracks. You're 8 months pregnant. And the train is called knowledge. We document exactly when you learned what you learned. We correct everything that carries your signature. And depending on what's in that folder, there's a formal channel for the rest of it. What you don't get to do anymore, Claire, is nothing." I hung up and looked at the whiteboard with my numbers in blue marker, and under the fetal monitor's steady gallop, I heard the shape of the next month of my entire life. That Sunday night, Marcus video called. Behind him, a plain wall, a lamp, the corner of what he'd carefully angled to look like his office back home. He'd gotten a little son, which he explained later as golf with the Tampa guys. He asked about my pressure about the baby, called her our little line item, which used to make me laugh, and I watched my husband perform tiredness. The rubbed eyes, the loosened collar he'd loosened specifically for the camera. And behind his voice, under the wall and the lamp, there was a low, steady hum I couldn't place at first, a hum with engines somewhere inside it. Then, far away, unmistakable to anyone who grew up in a port city, a ship's horn. One long note. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd stopped hearing it days ago. I didn't flinch either. "How's my girl?" he asked, and I put my hand on my belly on his daughter and I said, "We're fine." 2 words. The first lie I had ever told my husband. And here is what genuinely shocked me. Lying there in the dark after the call ended, it didn't feel like sin. It felt like armor. Like the first accurate entry in a household that had been quietly keeping 2 sets of books for years. He blew a kiss to the camera lens. I watched myself blow one back on the little preview screen. The woman in that preview did it perfectly. She'd learned from watching the very best. The family group chat that week was an absolute masterclass. My mother posted a photo of a conference center lobby she'd clearly pulled from a stock website beige carpet, a banner that could have been anywhere in the last 20 years, with the caption, "Day 2, your father is charming everyone." Brooke complained about back-to-back sessions. Marcus added a thumbs up to everything, the punctuation of a man carefully conserving his lies. And then, Wednesday evening, my mother slipped. A photo appeared. A sunset, impossibly orange, taken over a ship's rail. You could see the rail, you could see the wake, captioned, "Gorgeous evening here." 40 seconds later, it vanished. Deleted, replaced with nothing. I want to be honest about what I did with that because it matters enormously to how this story ends. I did not screenshot it. I didn't need to. Screenshots are for people building a case for an audience, and I was not building that kind of case. I reached for a yellow legal pad Yolanda had scrounged for me from the nurse's station, and I wrote, 7:41 p.m. sunset photo, ship's rail, deleted within the minute. A record, not a weapon. There's a difference, and I was only just starting to understand it was the difference I'd be living inside for the rest of my life. What that deleted photo actually cost me was something no screenshot could ever have held anyway. Until 7:41 that Wednesday, some small, rootless part of me had still believed this was Marcus's sin, singular, that my parents were simply props in it, maybe even fooled by it themselves. My mother deleted that photo in 40 seconds. You don't delete what you don't already know is a lie. They all knew. The entire boat knew. I spent the quiet days doing something genuinely dangerous for a woman on blood pressure watch. Remembering. 19, my first January, Dad clearing the dining table, setting down a banker's box, telling me I was the only one he trusted with the real numbers. I stayed up 3 nights and found $1,100 in bank fees he could avoid, and he told the whole marina his daughter had the sharpest eyes in Florida, and I lived on that sentence for a year. 22, skipping my only college spring break because audit season at the shop needed me, while my roommates sent postcards and I reconciled fuel invoices. 24, the CFO chair promised across a Christmas ham. When we expand, sweetheart. The expansion came the following spring. 2 new slips and a party with an ice sculpture. The chair didn't. 29, my father standing at a dealer dinner, raising his glass to me in front of 30 men, calling me the company's secret weapon, the whole table applauding while I sat there glowing like a fool, not noticing that the word secret was doing all the real work in that sentence. A weapon that stays secret gets used, gets cleaned, and gets put right back in the drawer. It does not get a title. It does not get a salary. It does not get a seat. Lying in that hospital bed, I finally let myself total the column I'd been carrying forward for 15 straight years. And the balance came out to this. I had done a controller's job for a decade and a half, completely for free, for a company that flew my husband to Cozumel on my credit card, while I grew their granddaughter in a monitored hospital bed. My pressure actually held steady that day. Yolanda said, "Sometimes the body calms down once the mind finally stops arguing with the evidence. Once you know a ledger is lying, the only mercy left is that it can't stop. Numbers confess in patterns, and the patterns just kept coming. In the real charter ledger, 5 years of cash receipts that had never once seen a tax return, $940,000, give or take the sunset weddings. In the payroll file, an employee I'd never met, a marketing assistant, salaried at $85,000 a year, with no email in the company system, no time cards, no photo at a single company party I'd ever attended, and a direct deposit account whose last 4 digits I recognized instantly, because I'd helped my sister open that exact account when she was 23. Brooke's assistant was Brooke, wearing a name like a coat. Fuel invoices with dates shuffled to move expenses between tax years. A consulting line item that mapped, month by month, precisely onto my parents' country club dues. I sat back against the hospital pillows and made myself say the true sentence out loud, quietly, to the fetal monitor. This was not a marriage problem. A husband on a boat, that's a marriage problem, and there are professionals for that. This was a federal problem wearing boat shoes. And my name, my clean, boring 20-year career of a name, was signed underneath 5 years of its cover story. My daughter kicked hard like a co-signature. "I know," I told her. "I know, we're not staying." That was the first time I said it out loud, and I noticed I'd said we. Whatever came next, attorneys, filings, the end of Sunday dinners on the causeway, it was no longer a thing happening to me. It was a thing the two of us were leaving together. My mother came to see me 2 days before the ship came home. She'd flown back early from Nassau, the sailing's last port, though the story fed to me was that Tampa had simply wrapped up early. She didn't know I knew there had ever been a ship at all. She brought peonies, my favorite, which felt, unpleasantly, like a receipt for something. She talked about Tampa for 4 full minutes, carpet, keynotes, and she has never been a good liar in person. Her hands kept smoothing the blanket over my feet, like she could iron the entire conversation flat if she just pressed hard enough. And then, in the middle of a sentence about the nursery, she stopped and looked at the monitor with my daughter's heartbeat ticking across it, and something in her face gave way at the foundation line. "Your father," she said, and stopped. Started again. "That trip, the Whitfields were on that sailing, the dealership money, the Naples people. Your father said we had to be seen there." "Be seen, Claire. You know how he is about being seen." I said nothing. Rule 1 of an audit: when they start talking, you stop helping. "You know the story," she said, quieter now. "You don't know all of it. He was 12. It was a Tuesday. The truck. The finance company sent 2 men, and they took your grandfather's truck right in front of the school bus stop, chains and all, in front of every single kid your father grew up with. He stood there holding his lunchbox. He told me one time, Claire, in 40 years, that the sound of those chains is the only thing he has ever actually been afraid of." She smoothed the blanket one more time. "He swore he would never look poor again. He's kept it. 50 years, and he's kept it." She left before visiting hours ended. The peonies stayed, and their smell filled the room, and I lay there doing the terrible arithmetic of compassion. A 12-year-old with a lunchbox, chains ringing in his ears, who grew up and bought boats and spent everyone he ever loved to keep that noise from ever coming back. Understanding a thing, it turns out, prices it. It doesn't pay for it. The next morning, I asked Yolanda for a favor. She was updating my whiteboard: date, BP, baby's heart rate, all in her square blue capitals, and I asked her to add 1 line at the bottom. She looked at me. Nurses don't write extra things on medical boards. The whiteboard is a legal document of sorts, and Yolanda had been a nurse for 30 years and had, I would bet everything I own, written exactly 0 decorative lines in her entire career. "What's the line?" she asked. "The 14th, I said. "Just that, the 14th. She held my eyes for a moment. She'd taken my pressure the day of the noon news. She'd taken it every day since while I typed. She was, I am certain, the only person in the entire state of Florida who had by then assembled the whole picture. And then she uncapped the marker and wrote it, square and blue, right underneath my daughter's heart rate. The 14th. Nobody asked. Doctors read my vitals off that board every morning for a week and a half, with the date of a docking ship sitting underneath them like a footnote, and not one person ever said a word about it. But I saw it every single time I opened my eyes. The 14th, the day the ship came home to Port Miami. The day the Tans walked back into their cover story. The day my husband would sit on the edge of my hospital bed, smelling of duty-free cologne, and tell me all about Tampa. And I had a parallel clock running now too, because my doctor had started saying the word induction. Week 36 if the numbers held. Sooner if they didn't. 2 arrivals coming in on 2 separate docks. One of them was mine. The whiteboard kept both of us honest. Heart rate on top. Judgment Day underneath. Yolanda capped the marker and said the only editorial thing she said about any of it that entire week. Boats come back. That's the thing about boats. On the 14th, at 6 in the evening, my husband came back from Tampa with a tan you genuinely cannot get inside a conference center and a gift bag from the airport. Inside the bag, a box of coconut patties, the exact kind they sell at every cruise port souvenir shop from here to Cozumel, and I would know because my firm audits a distributor. He kissed my forehead. He smelled like sunscreen at the follicle level, a smell that takes days of diligent reapplication to fully achieve. He sat on the edge of my bed, took my hand, and told me all about Tampa. And I did something I'm not proud of, and I would do again in a heartbeat. I asked one soft question purely to watch him answer it. Did the Whitfield deal close? A flicker. The name had been on the boat, not in Tampa, and then I got to watch a professional at work. He built it in real time. The Whitfields had sent their money guy instead. Tough negotiators, went long on day 2. Dad had to work the room. You know how your dad gets. Structure, texture, a setback for realism. A flattering role reserved for himself. It balanced. It was, honestly, beautiful. It was exactly like every fake ledger I've ever admired right before I broke it apart with a highlighter. And watching him assemble it, 8 inches from our daughter's heartbeat monitor, I finally, completely understood my husband. Marcus hadn't betrayed the family code on that trip. Marcus had been keeping it faithfully. He'd married into a firm where the actual product was appearance, and the invoice always, always went to someone standing off-screen, and he'd been promoted for it. I was the someone. He ate one of the coconut patties himself while telling me about Tampa's terrible traffic. He had bought his own alibi at the port, and then he sat there and ate it in front of me. I watched him lick the sugar off his own thumb, this man I had chosen, and I felt the last soft thing left inside me quietly file for its own separate divorce. I confronted him 2 days later about the marriage only. The rest wasn't his to hear first anymore. The rest had a lawyer now. I waited until he'd settled into the recliner with his phone, and I said, conversationally, "There's a charge on my card. $3,750, says cruise trip." The phone came down slowly, the way landing gear comes down, and I watched the stages I've watched play out in conference rooms my entire career. Stage 1, confusion. Must be fraud, we should call the bank is terrible about this. Stage 2, when I didn't blink, minimization. Okay, look, it was the excursions package, the group thing. My card was maxed from the trip deposits. And then it came, the sentence he'd clearly been issued from above. Your dad said just put it on yours. It's a cash flow thing. Sarah, I mean Claire, your family. Stage 3 is my personal favorite professionally. Stage 3 is when they calmly explain that the theft was actually a form of belonging. He leaned forward, took my hand in both of his, and said, gently, like a man comforting a woman who has simply failed to understand something lovely, "Babe, I married into this family. Your family's money is our money. It all comes around." I married into this family. Not you, not us. I heard the entire org chart contained inside that one sentence, my father at the top, the boats underneath him. Then Marcus, rising, and somewhere down in operations, unsalaried, permanently invisible on the chart, me, the department that pays. He rubbed his thumb over my knuckles. The monitor galloped softly on. "You look tired," he said, tender as anything. "You shouldn't stress about money stuff right now." And that was the actual moment the marriage ended. Not the broadcast, not the ship's horn on the video call. That thumb, that tenderness. A man gently soothing the exact account he was quietly drawing down. My father called the next evening. Not to confess. Men like my father don't confess, they renegotiate. Marcus had clearly reported the card conversation up the chain because Dad opened with the voice he reserves for buyers who have gotten cold feet at the closing table. Warm, amused, a little disappointed in me. "Your husband tells me you're upset about logistics." Logistics. $940,000 of unreported cash. A ghost on the payroll, my signature on 5 years of fiction, and a cruise on my card, logistics. "Talk to me, sweetheart, what do you want? You want the CFO title. Done, you want points. 15%, I'll have it drawn up today. You're about to be a mother, don't think like an accountant." I lay there with the phone against my ear, and I want to tell you exactly what happened inside me in that moment because it's the actual hinge of this whole story. Nothing happened. That's the event. Nothing. The chair I had wanted since I was 19 years old floated right past me on that phone line, real at last, offered at last. And it went by like a boat I simply wasn't on anymore, and I felt the wake of it, and that was all. It had taken him 15 years to finally offer it, and exactly one threatened audit to make him do it. That was the true price tag he'd finally shown me, and it had never once, not for a single second, been denominated in love. Brooke texted while he was still talking. "Don't do drama while you're pregnant. It's not good for the baby." My mother sent a red heart into the silence. It had taken 15 years, and my father was about to put that offer in writing in leather, right next to my daughter's bassinet. 2 days later, the drive access died. Brooke, the family's designated noticer of small things, had finally checked the access logs, seen my login stacked up like gulls on a piling, and the folders went dark one by one: shared drive, then payroll, then the charter files, permissions revoked after 15 years, the way you'd cancel a gym membership. They were too late, in a way they couldn't possibly have imagined. Not because I'd raced them to a download. Because of a habit older than any of this. I'm a preparer. Preparers keep copies of what they prepare, and of what they prepared it from. It isn't paranoia, it's the profession. 15 Januaries of work papers, source summaries, and sign-offs sat quietly in my own personal archive. Dated, backed up. Boring, mine. You can revoke a login, you cannot revoke a filing cabinet. That night my father called again, and the salesman was completely gone from his voice. What was left was lower, older, colder, the voice, I imagine, that talks to him in his sleep in a language made entirely of chains. "I want you to think very carefully, Claire. Your signature is on 5 years of this company's paperwork. Yours. Whatever you think you found it under your own name. This boat goes down, daughter. It goes down with all hands. We sink together." He waited. I watched my daughter's heartbeat tick across the monitor, steady as a metronome, borrowed courage running at 140 beats a minute. He thought he was tying me to the mast. What he'd actually done, and only one of us in that phone call knew it yet, was read me the last reason I'd had left for staying quiet. If my name was already on the boat, then silence wasn't safety anymore. Silence was just going down slower. "Good night, Dad," I said, and hung up and reached for the legal pad. Mira laid out the map on a video call the next morning, sharing her screen like a general who has already fought the entire battle inside her own head. 3 tracks in order. Track 1, we document the exact timeline of your knowledge when you learned from what and what you did next. We amend everything that carries your signature. That's your good faith armor, and it only works if it moves fast. Track 2, the company. What you've described has a formal channel, a disclosure to the IRS, filed through counsel. It's called a Form 211 when there's an award attached, and I want to set your expectations at exactly 0. It takes years. It pays whistleblowers a percentage, only if the government actually collects. Most people never see a dime. We're not filing it for the money, Claire. We're filing it because it is the single cleanest way on this earth to put the truth somewhere your family cannot charm it, bury it, or put it on your credit card. I laughed once, which surprised me. Track 3, she said, is the marriage, and that one's simple. The transfers, the card, that's financial infidelity with a paper trail, and family court has seen 1,000 versions of him. He'll be ordered to make it right, and he will be genuinely shocked, because men like Marcus are always shocked when a ledger finally runs in both directions. She stopped sharing her screen and looked at me, 8 months pregnant, in a hospital gown. The only thing you decide this week is nothing. You deliver a healthy baby. The paperwork will still be true after she's born. Truth keeps, Claire. It's the only thing in your entire family that does. My daughter had other plans for the schedule, which I have to say I respect. It runs in the family now. At 36 weeks and 1 day, my pressure spiked past arguing with, and the doctor finally said the word she'd been holding in reserve. Induction. It took 14 hours. Marcus was there for the hallway parts, performing husband for the nurse's station, coffee runs, updates to the group chat, a man visibly bearing up under pressure. And I let him, because I had exactly one job that night, and it wasn't managing him. At 4:12 in the morning, Lily Hendricks arrived, 5 pounds 8 ounces, red-faced and furious about the change in accommodations, with a cry like a small cat who has just seen your invoice and formally disputes it. They laid her on my chest, skin to skin, and the monitors quieted, and the room went away, and I met her. I need to tell you exactly what happened in that first hour, because everything after this depends entirely on it. I looked at my daughter, brand new, unsigned, not one single entry made in her yet, and I heard, clear as marker on a whiteboard, the exact lesson my family already had waiting for this girl. Be useful and be loved. Balance their books and call it belonging. Keep the January and lose the seat. Somewhere down the hall, my phone buzzed with red hearts from a woman who had deleted a sunset in 40 seconds, and I held my daughter's whole spine in one hand, and a door inside me swung shut with no slam at all. Just a click, like something finally, quietly reconciling. "Not you," I told her out loud, in the delivery room, while Marcus stood out in the hallway telling someone we were all doing great. "They're going to teach you that love is a job, not you. We're off that payroll." The nurse pretended not to hear. Yolanda would have written it on the whiteboard. My father came on day 2, once they'd moved us to postpartum. Room 412, bassinet by the window. He came correct, blazer, no Marina cologne this time, a gift bag with a stuffed manatee bigger than the baby herself. And he held his granddaughter like a man who has held Bobby's before and been photographed doing it. For 1 full minute, I'll give him that minute, free of charge. He was simply a grandfather, and his eyes did something entirely unrehearsed, and I saw the 12-year-old with the lunchbox looking out through them at all this soft, new pink wealth. Then he set Lily down gently, sat in the visitor's chair, lifted his briefcase onto his knees, and took out a leather folder. And I watched the grandfather leave the room while the body stayed behind. "I had this drawn up properly," he said, laying it on the rolling table next to the bassinet, next to my daughter, turning it to face me. It was real. Chief Financial Officer, Ashford Marine Group, 20% equity. A salary with a comma I had never once seen attached to my own name, effective the first of the quarter. My chair at last, in writing, with my father's signature already dried on it, waiting above the blank line where mine would go. And there, in the recitals section, dressed in the nicest suit language can wear, the executive will lead a comprehensive review and standardization of the company's financial records for the preceding 5 years. Standardization. 15 years I'd been their secret weapon for free. Now came the offer to keep doing it for equity, with the burying built directly into the job description. "Family is forever, sweetheart," my father said softly, patting the leather like a hull. "This seat was always yours. I was saving it for when you were ready." He left it there beside the bassinet and told me to sleep on it. Marcus, meanwhile, launched the full apology campaign. Flowers arrived daily. Peonies, which meant he'd had to ask my mother what I liked, which tells you absolutely everything you need to know about 5 years of marriage in one gesture. His parents called from Ohio, warm, mortified, kind people who'd raised a salesman entirely by accident. And on day 3, he sat by my bed at midnight while Lily slept and cried. Real tears. I want to be fair here because this story doesn't actually need him to be a monster. It needs him to be exactly what he was. He said he'd gotten swept up. He said, "My father makes a whole world and you're living in it before you even notice you moved." And this next part, I believed completely. That he had genuinely never once thought of the card charge as stealing. Not for a single second. That's what made it so hopeless. He cried, and I sat there with my hand on his head like some kind of benediction for the man I'd married, and some tired part of me actually reached for the exit marked, maybe. And then morning came, and Mira sent one line. No greeting. "Flag, day of Lily's birth. $9,000 out of the joint account, memo retainer." While I was in the 14th hour. While the nurse's station thought he was a rock. My husband had wept at my bedside at midnight with his own divorce lawyer already funded, quietly out of our grocery money. And both things were true at once. The tears and the transfer. Because in the family he'd married into, both books are always true simultaneously. You just never show them to the same person at the same time. I texted Mira back one word. "Proceed." Then I fed my daughter, and the maybe door closed with the exact same soft click as the first one had. The temptation deserves its own moment here, because I refused to pretend I floated above it entirely. 3 in the morning, 5 days in, the postpartum ward quiet as a bank vault after hours. Lily asleep on my chest with her fists up like a tiny boxer. The leather folder sitting on the rolling table where my father had left it, catching the hallway light. And I did what I do. I ran both scenarios, 2 columns, the oldest report in my entire profession. Column A, sign it. Lily grows up with a marina and a manatee and grandparents at every single birthday. My mother gets to keep pretending, which is genuinely the only home she has ever actually lived in. I get the title, the comma, the seat, everything I've wanted since I was 19. And all it costs is doing exactly what I've already done every January for 15 years, except now with equity attached. That was the sentence that saved me. I heard it out loud, in my own accountant's voice. Everything I have already done every January for 15 years. Column A wasn't a new life. Column A was my old life with a salary attached, a lifetime appointment to the job of painting rooms and signing my name underneath other people's stories, renewed annually, forever, with my daughter watching the whole time. She'd learn it exactly the way I did, not from any lecture, but from January's. Column B, I press one button, and I lose the marina, the birthdays, my mother, this whole city, the chair. And Lily learns, from the only teacher whose book she will ever get to fully audit, that her mother's name was never, under any circumstance, for sale. I looked down at her, 5 days old, breathing against my collarbone. The board doesn't need to hold a meeting when the numbers are already this clean. Yolanda came up from antepartum on her break the night before my discharge. Nurses visit their alumni when the alumni are worth visiting. She looked at Lily the way experts look at good work. Then she saw the leather folder sitting on the table, because Yolanda sees absolutely everything, and she asked no questions about it at all because Yolanda asks nothing. She checked my chart out of pure habit, straightened my water pitcher, and said, to the window more than to me, 30 years on that unit downstairs. You know what I hear from every single bed? It'll be different when the baby comes. They'll change. A grandchild changes people. She turned the pitcher handle so I could reach it. Bobbies don't change people, Mija. Bobbies reveal them. You've had a front row seat for the reveal for 5 weeks now. She headed for the door, and at the door she stopped and delivered the only piece of editorial commentary of her entire career, still not looking at me. Whatever's in that fancy folder, you already know exactly what it costs. You've been paying it since long before I ever met you. The only question left is whether the baby pays it too. Then she was gone, crepe soles fatting down the hallway, and I sat there with my daughter and my father's leather folder and my laptop. I opened the laptop and logged into the portal Mira had set up, where everything we'd built over 3 weeks sat finished, reviewed and waiting amended filings, the disclosure, the full timeline of my knowledge. Every page of it complete, lacking exactly one thing, which was my authorization. I texted my father. Come by tomorrow at 4. I'll have your answer. Discharge was set for the following morning, which gave the whole thing a deadline, and deadlines are the one language my family and I have always spoken fluently, together, without translation. I spent the day quietly building the room. Not for theater. I'd given up on theater the day I watched my family perform Tampa from a boarding ramp on live television, but because I've closed enough year-ends to know that how you stage a signing genuinely matters. The leather folder, squared on the rolling table, my father's pen still clipped to it exactly where he'd left it, confident as a flag planted on a hill. My laptop beside it lit, portal open, screen dimmed. Between them, the bassinet, with Lily wrapped like a burrito and working diligently on her tiny opinions. 2 documents. 1 baby. 1 decision. The whole last 15 years of my life, arranged neatly on a hospital rolling table with 1 scuffed wheel. Mira called at 3 to walk me through it one final time. You click, it files. Counsel of record is me. After that, no version of this family meeting changes anything legal. You'll be safe, documented, and done. Or she said this part carefully, lawyerly. You don't click, and we talk tomorrow about what track 1 looks like alone. Even now, she was still leaving me the exit. That's exactly how I knew I'd chosen the right attorney and the right column. Everyone kept handing me exits, and I kept very quietly not wanting them. At 4 o'clock exactly, my father has never once in his life been late to a closing, there was a knock. 2 knuckles, brisk, Lily startled, then settled. Come in, Dad, I said, and the door opened on the last conversation of my old life. He went to the bassinet first, of course he did. He's the best closer on the whole Gulf Coast, and the bassinet was, without question, the best thing in that room. He looked down at Lily for a long moment, and his face did the unrehearsed thing again, and I let it happen because it was true, and because it was the last free minute I would ever hand him. She's got the new chin, he said. God help her. He sat, pulled the chair close, rested his hand on the leather folder the way a captain rests a hand on a rail. And then he gave the speech. It was a good speech. I'd heard drafts of it my entire childhood. Family is a boat, he said. The water out there doesn't love you. Banks, government, strangers, whether everything out there wants a piece of the hull. But inside the boat, we're warm, we're dry. And we do not. His voice found its old iron. We do not ever leave the boat. Your grandfather lost his truck, he said quietly. I watched it dragged off on a chain in front of my entire school. Everything I've built since, every hour, every deal, every appearance, he tapped the folder, was so nobody in this family would ever have to hear that sound again. He turned the folder toward me, unclipped the pen, and set it down on the leather with the tiny, final click of a thing completing its journey. Sign it, sweetheart. Take your seat. Fix the past. It's just cleanup. You've done it your whole life, and everything goes back to what it was, all of it, like none of this ever happened. And the terrible part, the part I will be honest about for the rest of my life, is that for 2 full seconds, that sentence actually sounded like rest. I didn't argue with the speech. You cannot outclose a closer. Asymmetry was always the only strategy I ever actually had. Instead, I asked 3 questions in my flattest month-end voice, the voice that has ended 100 beautiful presentations before mine ever had to. First question. Has this seat existed since I was 19, or since the night you found out what I'd read? He smiled, the buyer's remorse smile spread his hands. Sweetheart, does it matter? It's here now. Second question. The marketing assistant, $85,000 a year, 5 years. Who cashes it? The smile held, but his eyes flicked to the bassinet, just for a flicker, the tell of a man checking whether the witness in the room was old enough yet to testify. Brooke works hard in ways you don't see, he said, which, as an answer, was an audit finding all by itself. Third question, and I said this one slowly, because I had waited 15 years to ask him a question he couldn't charm his way around. If I sign this and standardize 5 years of records, when the numbers get questioned, Dad, and numbers always get questioned, whose name answers the door? Yours, Brooks, Marcus's. Silence. Or is that what the seat is actually for? And there it was. The thing underneath the leather, finally visible. The chair I'd wanted my entire adult life was a named position standing directly in front of a fire, a title, a comma, and a blast radius. My father looked at me for a long moment, and I watched him reprice me in real time, the exact way he reprices a buyer who's just finished reading the survey report. Then he reached for the old reliable, the closer's very last tool, soft as a hymn. Your signature is already on 5 years of this, Claire. We sink together or we sail together. Same boat, always was. Stood up slowly, because 6 days after delivery you negotiate with your own body about absolutely everything, and I put one hand on the bassinet rail not for the drama, but because I needed to physically hold the reason. 15 years, Dad, I said, and my voice came out exactly the way I'd always hoped it would in this particular room. Level, unhurried. A report being read into the record. Since I was 19, every January, every audit season, every cleanup. You know what I finally understood, lying in this building while my card paid for the excursions package? He waited. Closers know exactly when the room has to speak for itself. You always wanted my numbers. You never once wanted my name. My numbers stayed in the family. My name stayed off the door. That was the whole design. The weapon stays secret or it stops being useful. I looked at the leather folder, the pen gleaming on it like bait sitting on a hook. Everyone in this family was always at work. Tampa, the office, big quarter. You know what's funny, Dad? I was the only one in this entire family who was ever actually working. Portal did what portals do. No thunder, no gavel. A gray button went briefly blue. A confirmation number appeared, 10 digits, and the truth about Ashford Marine Group left the family forever at 4:19 on a Thursday afternoon. The quietest sound I have ever heard a life change on. My father didn't shout. I want you to know that because I had genuinely braced myself for the shout, and what actually came was somehow worse and better, both at once. He looked at the screen until the confirmation number burned itself into his memory. Then he closed the leather folder, slowly, both hands, the exact way you close a casket lid. He stood, buttoned his blazer, and looked down at Lily one last time. You just orphaned yourself, daughter, he said, and his voice cracked exactly once, right in the middle, exactly where the salesman couldn't quite reach. In your own special way. No, Dad, I said, and it came out almost gentle because it almost was. I just stopped making payments. He walked out of room 412 without the folder. It sat there for an hour until an orderly asked if it was trash. I said yes. And watch what you say to tired women, because I meant every word of it. That evening, in the same chair, with Lily asleep in the crook of my left arm, I signed the other set of papers on that same rolling table, the divorce petition Mira had drafted. My name, the date, done. 2 signatures in one single afternoon. One to the government, one to the court. And both of them said exactly the same thing in different fonts. My name, my life, my ledger, now. That night, once the ward had gone quiet, I posted the only public statement I have ever made, or will ever make about any of it. No thread, no video, no crying selfie, none of the currency my family has always trafficked in. 4 sentences, comments off. Marcus and I are divorcing. As of this month, I have no financial connection to Ashford Marine Group. All records I ever prepared for that company are being corrected with the appropriate authorities. That's all I'll ever say about this. Then I turned the phone face down on the blanket and fed my daughter in the dark, listening to the rain come in off the bay and tick against the window of room 412. The post did exactly what truth does when you refuse to perform it. It moved slowly, and it could not be argued with. There was nothing to screenshot out of context. No adjective to quote back at me. No wound to reopen on camera. Just 4 flat facts sitting quietly in the town square with their hands folded, while every marina in Miami filled in the rest of the story by itself. My phone lit up, face down on the blanket, on and off all night like distant lightning. Brooke. Cousins. Numbers I didn't recognize. One from my mother at 2 in the morning that I didn't read until it was light out. When I finally did, it said only, I understand. It's the closest thing to a confession anyone in my family has ever sent me. I never answered it. I did keep it. Here's the accounting, because you've stayed with me this long and you've earned the actuals. The audit took 14 months, and it was exactly as boring as justice usually is: letters, records requests, conference calls I wasn't on and had no interest in being on. Ashford Marine Group was assessed $1.3 million in back taxes, penalties, and interest. The fleet was sold at auction. I'm told the Whitfields bought 2 of the boats, which has a poetry to it I've declined to fully enjoy. The company dissolved. The Coral Gables house grew a realtor's sign. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom condo near the causeway, close enough to the water that my father can still smell the life he used to stage. He tells people at the marina that his own daughter stabbed the family in the back. Fewer people every year find that story load-bearing because the public record is public, and records, unlike stories, don't need anyone to believe them in order to remain true. Brooke got a job with a time clock. I'm told she's good at it. I hope that's true, in a way I don't fully have room for yet. Marcus, the divorce decree ordered him to repay the card charge and half of everything he'd moved. $3,750 plus $18,700. And he was, exactly as Mira predicted, genuinely shocked to discover that ledgers run in both directions. He sees Lily twice a year, and both times so far he's been between opportunities. Tanned, warm, wonderful with her for 90 minutes at a stretch. Some men are excursions, not voyages. My mother sends birthday cards to a P.O. box I set up for exactly this purpose. A small door, with conditions attached. And so far she has honored every single one of them, which is its own quiet kind of astonishment. And me, a forensic accounting firm in Seattle that had sat across from me on a case years earlier, called the very month my post went up. It turns out 4 flat sentences make a surprisingly strong resume in my field. 2 years later, I hung out my own sign. I got to stand on a sidewalk on a gray Northwest morning, coffee in one hand, Lily's stroller handle in the other, and watch a man in overalls press gold lettering onto glass. Hendricks Forensic Accounting. My numbers and my name, finally, on the same door. The whistleblower claim is still out there somewhere inside the federal machinery. Mira says years, maybe never. If it ever arrives, it goes straight into Lily's college fund. And if it never does, it changes absolutely nothing, because I never filed it for the money. Some ledgers you correct purely for the record. On Saturdays, we walk to the lake, and Lily counts the ducks. She counts them wrong every single time. I don't correct her. I spent 15 years believing that if I balanced their books carefully enough, love would eventually balance too. But love was never a ledger you can earn your way into. It's a name on a door. And the only door that ever actually owed me my name was the one I finally went out and built myself. That's my story. One news report, one click, and a name that finally, permanently landed on the right door. If you're the one who keeps the whole family running while somebody else takes the cruise, let this be your sign to go check exactly where your name is and where it isn't. Share this with the person who does the quiet work in your family. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in room 412. I'll see you in the next one.